Velina Mike, aloha everyone. I am Kumu Pa'a Kawika Foster, and you're joining me live. We are doing the O Kahiko live stream, and today we're continuing with the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundations, and we're gonna be exploring in depth the first pillar of the foundation that we introduced last week. Last week, we really did introduce the multitude of pillars of this foundation that we speak of and that we share. And today, we're continuing the discussion of that foundation and going a little bit deeper into the first pillar of AKUA. So I want to thank you all for joining me, and let's begin with a protocol as we do. Nakua ke amakua ke poe kahiko molokai nuia hina aloha aloha mahalo. Pulikako, aloha na kua, na o makua na poe kahiko, mahalo. Mahalo e ka la, e ka aina, mahalo e ka makani, e ho'i mai, e hele mai a kua, e pili mai, e malama pono. Akua to the higher beings, to our gods, our goddesses, Aumakua to our guardians, and poe kahiko to our ancestors. We invite you to be here and present with us as we continue to share the foundation of Hawaiian spiritual knowledge and wisdom as it is preserved. Excuse me, as it is preserved in our lineage. We ask for your presence, for your guidance, and for your protection to be with us and upon us. We also invite that of our ancestors to join us as well, that they surround us and shield us and protect us, that they find joy and happiness in all that they are about to see and hear. This is our humble and our simple prayer. We send it to you now in flight with a sacred and a powerful word. Ea mama, ea mama, ea mama, mahalo na kua. So once again, everyone, thank you for joining me. I am Kumu Pa'a Kawika Foster. I am the 51st generation of traditional cultural practitioners and traditionalists of our lineage, which stems from the island of Molokai, the valley of Halawa, the land district, the Ahupua'a of Halawa. And today we're continuing the discussion and the share of the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundation that we introduced last week's live stream. And what we're doing beginning today in this live stream is breaking down each of the components of this foundation that we spoke of. And today, particularly, we are talking about AKUA and the significance of AKUA and breaking this pillar down, exploring the multitudes of understandings of the spirit realm and the significance of the higher beings that we know to be in existence in this universe and present with us. It's also the reason for the significance and the importance of the protocol that I demonstrate before doing any kind of sharing. And that's just, once again, to acknowledge them, acknowledge their presence, and to invite them to be with us and to be with me as I share or teach the knowledge and wisdom of my lineage. And so today we're going to begin, and we're going to talk about the pillars of the foundation. And the pillars of the foundation is the components of AKUA, the higher being, Aloha, Puli, which is the power of prayer. That's something that we're going to really break down and discuss even further next week. And Puli is prayer. There's Aloha, unconditional love. There is Pono, which is right and righteousness. It's right alignment. We have Ohana, which is family. We have Hana, which is the work. We have O I'o, the truth, and Makakao, which is the spirit of readiness. So those are some of the pillars of the knowledge and wisdom of the foundation that we're exploring. We've been exploring with each other, and today we're going straight into the very first pillar, which is AKUA. So as we get into the presentation here, I'd like to start off, of course, this is once again Na AKUA, the pillars of the foundation, and it's a deep dive exploration of the very first pillar of significance of this foundation that we've been sharing. And once again, that is Na AKUA. Today's presentation is going to include the pillars of the foundation. Once again, I've been sharing that since the beginning of this live stream. So that's really what we're going to begin with. Then we're going to drop into the spirit realm and the significance of the spirit realm and how that plays a role, a very significant and important role in the foundation that we are building. And we're going to be going deeper into Na AKUA, which is the higher beings. We'll explore the difference between belief and knowing. We'll also explore Na AKUA, which is our guardians, ancestors, and our protectors. And then we will drop into O Kahiko, which is our ancient ancestors and their presence in our lives. We'll begin to round out with knowing your ancestors and really speaking about and highlighting who they are and identifying them in life and their presence in our lives. And then we're going to introduce a concept which is called Aka. And the Aka cords are invisible lines of connection. They're invisible, translucent lines of communication that we have to our ancestors, our guardians, and to the higher beings. And they will complete today's live stream with belonging and understanding that we are part of the whole. So before we continue on, I'd like to say that if you're inspired by anything that you're hearing or that I'm sharing, then and you would like to participate, by all means, drop a comment, and I'd be happy to read that, include that comment in the live stream. There'll be moments throughout this live stream where I'll be asking for some engagement, and if you're inspired to engage, you're welcome to do so at those times. Here we go. This is a Hawaiian teaching. This is an ancient teaching, and what it shares with us is Nana Ike Kumu, and Nana Ike Kumu really means to look to the source. Yeah, Nana is to look, and Ike Kumu is the source. Yeah, or Kumu is our Kumu is like the main root, the main stalk of a plant. It also symbolizes and speaks to us, of course, of the true source that we acknowledge in our lives, which is our kupuna, our elders, and the significance that they have for us in our lives. and that we are looking to them for the direction in which to move. And the same with our ancestors and our guardians and that higher power, that higher being that we speak of. And Nana Kumu, to look to that source, to look to our teachers, to look to our elders, so that we are better able to orient ourselves in the direction in which we need to be moving. So that's the importance of Nana Ike Kumu. Look to the source. Pillars of the foundation. Okay, so once again, the pillars of the foundation. This foundation, it really begins with the pillars that we've been sharing and talking about. The pillars consist of many concepts and understandings of our ancient ancestors, and the foundation, it sets the lens and the frame through which we engage with all of life. These pillars are really significant in creating the the framework of which we are able to engage, interact, communicate with all of the elements that we find around us and present in this universe. To it's it it demonstrates for us how we engage with our ohana, our family, in the living and also in spirit. So once again, these pillars of the foundation that we speak of are really important components. And once again, it just sets that lens and that frame through which we engage with life. The spirit realm. Excuse me. What I'd like to begin by sharing is that in the spirit realm, we acknowledge three primary levels, and um, those primary levels are the AKUA, the Aumakua, and the O Kahiko. Okay, so protocol dictates the acknowledgement, dictates for us the acknowledgement of our gods, our goddesses, our guardians, and ancestors through our aligning ourselves in spirit, mind, and in body, and in that order. So these three primary levels that we are speaking of the spirit realm is comprise the first pillar that we have been sharing of this foundation that we speak of, and that pillar is AKUA. Yeah, in traditional Hawaiian healing, when and in ancient time, when we entered into a heiau, a temple, or into what's um, uh, more regularly used today, a halal, which is a school of learning, right? When we enter into these temples in this ancient time to learn and to master a discipline, the akua was the very first and foremost component, and therefore also the very first pillar in which we share of this foundation. The akua is the source. Yeah, once again, nana ike kumu, to look to that source. It's the source to which we align ourselves in mastering a discipline such as healing, for example. Um, and the akua becomes very, very significant. The reason that akua is significant is because for us, in our understanding and in our ancestral teachings, the healing power only comes from akua, from that source of healing. Um, and we are conduits to their presence and to their energy power. So we master our relationship to them, our connection to them, so that when we need to, in healing, for example, when we need to, then we're able to call upon them to receive, yeah, and open ourselves to receive the healing power that they provide. So once again, the spirit realm, yeah, is is comprised of three primary levels for us. And you've heard me address these three primary levels right at the beginning with the protocol. And in that protocol, in that chant, in that holy, what I'm chanting is E nakua ke au makua ke poe kaiko. Right? So right there, what I'm demonstrating for you is the three primary levels of spirit that I'm addressing. Very first and foremost, E nakua. So na akua. Na is plural. Yeah, in our language, in our oral language, signifies that there's more than one. Yeah, and AKUA is the higher being. So for us and our ancient ancestors, we worshipped 400,000 gods and goddesses, and we kept an openness, yeah, in our spirit, in our mind, in our body, um, as a way of life and as a way of being. Um, in the in the reception of other gods and goddesses that would eventually come to our islands. So, for example, when the missionaries arrived and they brought with them their Christian god, our ancestors said, "Mahalo, Keakua," right? We love your God. Or Mahalo Keakua, we thank your God. And we also Aloha Keakua, we love your God. For our ancient ancestors, it simply became 400,001. So, once again, in that chant, what I'm demonstrating is the very first and most significant pillar that we're sharing and taking a deep dive into today, which is Na Akua, the many higher beings, yeah, the many sources of guidance and healing. So in that opening chant, I also demonstrated for you the two other primary levels of spirit that we're addressing and that we're including in this pillar of this foundation. And that second level is Aumakua, na Aumakua. E na kua na Aumakua ke poe kaiko. Yeah, so once again, na Aumakua is the second level of the spirit realm that we're addressing. And that the Aumakua, these are our guardians. These are our protector spirits and ancestors, and we're going to get really deep into them um, and demonstrate how their role, yeah, in this pillar that we are exploring today. So that's Almakua. That's who I'm chanting out to. I'm chanting out to my guardian spirits. I'm inviting them to be present and to be with me in this share. And then we move into the third level of the spirit realm that we are continually acknowledging in the work that we do. And that is Poe Kahiko. And Poe Kahiko simply and literally speaking, Poe is people or person, and Kahiko is ancient, right? So now we're talking about our ancient ancestors, and we're addressing them, we're drawing them in through that opening chant in protocol to be present with us, and they complete the three primary levels of spirit that we're describing for you all right now. So we have our Aumakua, or excuse me, we have our Akua, which is our gods, our goddesses, the higher beings, yeah, and then we have our Aumakua, which is our guardian spirits and ancestors, our protector ancestors. And then we also have our Poe Kahiko, which consists once again of acknowledging, it's our way of acknowledging all of our ancient ancestors. And we'll get into some great detail about Poe Kahiko as we move along. So, once again, protocol dictates for us the acknowledgement of our gods and goddesses, our guardians and ancestors through aligning ourselves in spirit, mind, and in body. And one more thing that I'd like to talk about here on this slide and share about and share with you all is the very last component there: spirit, mind, and body. So um, once again, yeah, in an ancient understanding and in the modern understanding today, spirit really is the significant component for us. We are continually aligning ourselves with the spirit of our ancestors, the spirit of our guardians, the spirit of our the higher beings, of our gods and of our goddesses. We're continually acknowledging the presence of spirit around us, here in the living, in the wind, in the trees, in the sun, in the moon, in the ocean, and the waterfalls, the fresh water, um, and really in all of the elements that we find present and in existence in our universe. Um, and we're addressing them in a very intimate and direct way, which means by name, right? So part of the clarification that I'd like to do is, and also invite my Kumu, my teacher, to share on and speak about in just a minute, is, the difference in today's time of addressing the higher beings as na AKUA, and how our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, really addressed those higher beings by name, and the difference in the relationship that builds for us, and the intimacy that it builds for us. So this order that I'm speaking of here, aligning ourselves in spirit, mind, and body. That's the component that I really just want to knock on the head right now. That's the order for us. Yeah, in our lineage, in how we're taught, and the places and the spaces that we move in, as cultural practitioners and teachers, is in that order. Yeah, many a times today you will see mind, body, spirit, or you'll see body, mind, spirit, and in many cases, actually, either in modern medicine, or science, or even in some of the more modern alternative practices of healing and therapy, that spirit component's not even included, right? So we're really just in many of those, in those dynamics, in many of those areas of modern Western civilized culture, the spirit is not even a component that is included when we're talking about health and well-being, um, from a Western point of view. So that's the last component that I really wanted to clarify about that slide. Yeah, in aligning ourselves in spirit, mind, and body, and really demonstrating the significance of that order, right? And how that also reflects in the ancient understanding of Akua, right? Of the higher being that came first. Yeah. Again, when we speak of an ancient time, when we enter into a halal, right? And that's another modern term, really, a school of learning. Um, in the ancient form, once again, we were talking about when you were entering to learn and to master a discipline of healing, for example, you were actually moving into a heiau, and a heiau is a very different and much older understanding than the halal that we have today. And once again, the heiau, this was a temple, yeah, and temples were constructed for our gods, our goddesses. And so when you went in and you were learning a discipline, you were mastering, and you became an acolyte, an apprentice to your um, your discipline, right? Then you were entering into a temple, and you were engaging directly with the gods and the goddesses of your discipline. So that came first. Yeah, the spirit came first, then the mind, then the body. And we broke that down in many different ways too, um, as we move along here. You'll be enlightened to some of that as we proceed. So once again, um, mahalo for allowing me to share that. I'd like to um, take a quick moment. Oh, dynamic Jennifer, you are joining us once again. Aloha, thank you for being here. Um, I just want to throw your comment up here for a moment and just say let you say aloha to everyone. So thank you once again, dynamic Jennifer, for being here. You've been really consistent in all of the live streams. So I'm happy to have you here. Um, and before we move along any further, I do have Kumu Pa'a Nui Lawrence Kalainia Kamania Ki. This is my direct Kumu, my teacher. It's who I learned from, and I'd like to invite him up into the broadcast to share really what um, I mentioned the differences in na akua, and also the names of our gods and our goddesses in the ancient form and addressing them by name. Um, so if you were inspired to share about that, that would be more than welcome. But of course, it can go wherever it needs to, Kumu, and I'm happy to have you share um, whatever you'd like. Oh, aloha.
Hey, aloha mai, aloha ka'ua, kumu kawika. Great to be here. Um, yeah, I just stepped into the room, but I have the idea as to the discussion that's actually taking place.
Mhm.
So yeah, as you were speaking, I have to say that, it's spot on as to what you're discussing about. It's important in that of our beliefs and that of our teachings, where it concerns, that of our sources. Yeah. So there's that old saying, right? Dana eke kumu, look to the source, right? So the idea is, what is that source? Well, the source begins in the spirit realm, in the uhani realm. So, basically you're looking at that of the higher beings, you're looking at that of what we identify in our language, our understanding, our teachings that has been handed down through the generations, that of our guardians, which is we use the word Almakua, as
Mm,
well as that of Poe Kahiko, the ancient ancestors, yeah, and as well as the recent ancestors or elders that have crossed into that spirit realm, So these are our sources. The connection to our sources is very important. And by having that connection, so we understand the knowing. Yeah, that's one of the major questions I always have in discussions with people is how do you know? How do
mm,
you know when, that the ancestors is communicating with you?
right.
So my point has always been follow the pillars. As long as you live by the pillars, so for this reason, you then gain that of the um, experience, right? Of being able to communicate with that of the spirit realm. And when you get to that point, this is where you come to know. You come to know many things at that point in time.
Mm,
Yeah. I also want to kind of make mention, Kumu Pa'a Kawika, because it's very important to understand that we deal with not only the spirit realm, and yet it's the ultimate realm, we also deal with that of the mind and that of the physical. So we're here in the physical realm, and because we're here in the physical realm, it's always important for us in identifying those sources in that of the spirit realm, but it's also important for us, to keep us humble. Yeah.
Mm,
to ensure that the work that we do is not based on our own ego. Um, so it's very important for us to identify that of the physical realm, our sources. Yeah, sources like that, our own kumus, as an example, right? You know, yourself identifying myself as your kumu, but still having the ability of the lineage of kumus. Yeah,
mm,
where my kumu, you know, being that of kumu hula anakala pilipo solitario, his kumu, who has passed as far as his kumu, that of kumu anake or kumuhula anake, Harriet Ney, right? So knowing these sources and sharing these sources is how we keep our own personal humbleness to the teachings, you know, and to the fact that this ike, this knowledge that has been handed down to us, comes from the source, you know,
mm,
because in that of the knowledge itself, if not for them, then we would not have that understanding, you know.
right.
But because of them, and what they also teach us, right, as far as our own personal kumus. And when I say, you know, it could also be, you know, everyone, like in my case, I was raised by that of my maternal grandparents. So, you know, it's important for me to also share that my maternal grandparents, you know, that of my Tutu Kani, Mateo Molena, and that of Tutu Wahini, Bernice Kavailani, you know, or Mo'ula, these individuals, you know, was very instrumental as being part of my source of learning about our culture, traditions, as to, you know, the understanding as to what happens and why we are here and what happens after we leave this physical realm, and all of that kind of ike, you know, comes from them. And so we have to identify them, yeah, in our shares and when we're talking to people. That is absolutely important, yeah.
Mm,
um, because for us not to mention our sources, then we are um, uh, taking in what I would consider as the ego within mankind. You know, I this, I that. You know, it's me, it's mine. That's not the
mm,
concept, yeah, that we have. You know, that is shared through our ancestors. You know, for us, it's very, very important that we, yeah, it's us, yeah,
mm,
and more importantly, is, you know, coming from that of our lineage, of our teachers, our
mm.
grandparents, granduncles, grandaunts, and then leading into that of the spirit realm. So yeah, mahalo, Kumu Pa'a Kawika, for allowing me to share these things, which I already know that you probably covered, right? You know, but you know, just re-emphasizing the importance of these teachings that we received from that of our sources. Yeah, mahalo.
Yep. Mahalo. And you know what? We have a couple comments. I wanted to throw them up there I still had you with me. So of course that first comment was from that of Donna. And she's just saying aloha all the way from Switzerland. You know, Haumana and family from Switzerland. So I just wanted to share that with you while I still had you. And I'd also like to ask you about the uh, I'd like to ask you about the word itself, na akua, and and have you share whatever you're inspired to about those words.
Yeah, excellent question. And yet at the same time, its importance of understanding. You know, historically, many things has changed here in Hawaii. Not only that of our culture and traditions, but even that of our language, and how also, um, there's a great, in my mind anyway, in my experience, much is lost in the translation of words from Hawaiian into English. Much is lost just to write it down, for that matter, because it was an oral language. And probably even this word AKUA is a very, very good example of it. Yeah. Though we, in that of our lineage, we utilize the word na akua in comparison to ke akua. Ke akua is singular. So, you have that of Lauren Andrew in 1835, who is a missionary. He writes the first dictionary in Hawaiian to English translation. So everything to do with what they considered, as being pagan, that they interpreted, that our ancestors followed. So they tried to eliminate it in our language, and then they created other language to say it was Hawaiian, to say Akua. Um, so because of this, eventually what happens is we find that many of our people don't even, by the time you get to the mid 1900s, many of our people don't even speak the language. Yeah. Let alone the fact that they don't even understand their own traditions and culture. Um, so, you know, but to justify the teachings, we utilize the term na'akua because our ancestors were believers of not a singular God, but of many. You know? And in truth of the matter, when our ancestors actually, way back when, before the missionaries come here, before Captain Cook come here, when they prayed, when they chanted, right, when they shared the mo'olelo, the stories, um, they never used that term of akua or na akua. They actually called that of the higher beings by direct name. And so, what we understand, and that has been passed in a lineage, is the fact that there were more than 400,000 gods and goddesses that they believed in. So, when they called upon them, really, they called their names because they had a relationship with them. In the case of the four major gods, it was Ku, it was Kani, it was that of Lono and Kanaloa. Kanaloa is credited to be the god of the depths of the ocean or the creatures of the depths of the ocean. Yeah. Lono was considered to be, that of the god of agriculture, the god of peace. In fact, Lono is identified as far as that of the heiaus, the temples of Lono. 4 months out of the year is the only temple that is worshipped, and all other temples, including the temples to the war god Kukaili Moku that is introduced by the coming of the Tahitians, all of those temples were shut down in that 4 months that they were worshipped to that of Kanaloa, or excuse me, to that of Lono, the god of peace. Yeah. Of course, Kani, he's identified in many of the mo'olelos of the stories as the god of life. Yeah. So water is life. So Kani is considered to be the god of fresh water. Yeah. As well as that of Ku. Many times Ku is associated, right, with that of the goddess Hina. And procreation is involved here with Ku and Hina. And procreation is on all levels. Not only mankind or Kanaka o Iwi, or some people say Kanaka Maoli, but we're talking about procreation, of, you know, everything around us from the wind to the clouds to the waters to that of the plants that we plant, and grow. Um, yeah, so Ku and China, right? They are also considered as part of that ancient gods, just like that of Kani, just like that of Lono and Kanaloa, all right? So now, and this is where sometimes there might be some differences in belief from one island to the other. So some people, some Kanaka o Iwis, depending on the island or the Ahu Pu'aha, the land district on a particular island that you come from. Some will say that the rising sun is that of Ku, right? The god of procreation. And then there are those that will say that, the rising sun is the god of Kani. Whatever and whichever you choose to understand is the God of the sun. The point of the matter is there is a God to be worshipped and understood as far as the sun is concerned. So, again, as I mentioned, we're not using the term na and we're not using the term ke akua, yeah, or na akua. We go to, whenever the prayers was done or the olis was done in ancient time, it was directed, yeah, as far as the prayers, as well as that of the olis, the chants of prayer. It was directed to specific gods and goddesses because it was very dependent on what the content of your prayer was all about. If it was hula, as an example, so you pray to the goddess of hula. So the name is Laka, yeah, the god is Laka. This is who you would direct your prayer to. You would not say Ke Akua Laka. You would not say Na Akua Laka, but you would call her by her direct name. Yeah. It's the same thing as going to the forest, to collect medicinal plants or for that of ornamental flowers and vines, that we're going to dance hula with. What our understanding is and what our teachings is these trees, these ferns, these vines, these flowers that certain trees have is directed to certain gods and goddesses as kinolaos, as body forms. Yeah? So we clearly understand that when we go to the forest, as an example, if we are collecting flowers and vines like maile for the purpose of adorning ourselves for hula, so then again, here is a fine example. We would address that of the goddess Laka. And then if we're cutting, like, because we need a canoe as an example, so you're going to cut that of a koa tree. So here we identify that of the god Ku, the god of strength, the god of power. Yeah. And koa tree is that of his kinolao, his body form, one of the many body forms that these gods and goddesses take on, and why it's important for us to understand how to address them when we're on in the forest, right? Kind of thing. But sometimes there's so much that is involved and so much that needs to be mentioned, right? So many a times in prayer, especially in the closing of the prayers, we don't want to miss anybody, so we say, e amama, yeah, e amama, e amama, e amama. Let it fly wherever it needs to go as far as our prayers is concerned. And we want to make sure that we're not falling short of not mentioning one of these gods or goddesses. And that's one of the safe ways of ensuring, all right, that your prayer goes where it needs to go. So I hope I was able to answer your question, Kumu Pa'a Kawika, and mahalo for the question.
Yeah, mahalo to you too. Thank you always for joining me and um, the support and contribution and the love and support that you continue to extend to me and in your presence and being here. So um, mahalo. I'm gonna remove you from the broadcast and keep you in the background um, and maybe we'll have another opportunity to have you share with us some more later on. Mahalo. So once again, everybody, I want to say thank you for joining me and joining us here in the O Kahiko live stream. We are exploring in depth the very first and most important pillar of the foundation that we speak of, that we introduced last week, which is that of AKUA. And You just got done hearing Kumu Pa'a Nui, Lawrence Aki, um, enlighten us as to and really round out some of the understandings that we have about AKUA. I'd like to go over here to the comments for just a moment and just say thank you so much, Betsy DeJong, for joining us all the way from Holland. Mahalo for being here and for this beautiful comment. Um, and thank you for being here. As we continue on here, I want to drop us back into the presentation and then um, offer an opportunity for some more engagement from you all. And um, and so let's continue on. Going deeper, free and clear, and make strong. And what I'm really just what I'm conveying here in this part of the share is once again the importance of our connection, our direct connection, our direct line of communication to our ancestors, our guardians, and to that higher being or beings that we believe in, and making sure that that connection that we have to them is free and clear, and that it is as strong as it possibly can, so that when we require, when circumstances arise in our lives where we require their assistance, and particularly the healing power that only comes from that source of Akua, that we're able to receive it, that connection, that communication is free and clear and is strong, so that we are able to receive that energy power, that guidance, um, that they will extend to us in reply to our prayers, to our communications to them. So that's really what I wanted to convey here in the essence of going deeper and making that connection free and clear and strong. We're going to drop into Na'akua. So here, once again, this speaks of this word Akua, which you heard Kumu Pa'a Nui Lawrence speak about in great depth. But once again, for a visual presentation of these two words, Na'akua. Na'akua refers to our gods, our goddesses. It refers to the higher beings that we know to be in existence in our universe. Na, once again, is plural, and you heard Kumu Lawrence also speak about this in great depth as well, and that Na is the more than one, and in our culture, in our direct culture and heritage, our ancestors worship 400,000 gods and goddesses. So that's the significance of Na, making it plural, and that it signifies the existence of more than one higher being. And Akua, once again, is translated to mean higher being. So the entirety of the word on in its literal translation is, the the many higher beings, the many gods and goddesses. Moving along here, belief and knowing. and the importance of understanding the difference. Uh, so in our culture, in our lineage, I'll speak specifically of our lineage of knowledge and wisdom from the island of Molokai, from the Valley of Halava. Uh, there is a difference in a belief and in knowing, and we strive for in our lineage, we strive to step beyond belief, to extend ourselves further into a knowing, into a place of knowing. So in this place and in this space of knowing, now there's no more question of the existence of our ancestors. There's no more question of the existence of the guardian spirits, which are also our ancestors. And there's most definitely there is no more question about the existence and the presence of our gods and our goddesses in our lives. Um, we strive once again in our lineage to make that relationship to make it, to embody that understanding, to make it firm and unshakable, that uh, there's no more separation, really, is what we're getting at too, in those levels. Yeah, there's no more separation, there's no more distance, there's no space, there's no time, there's no layers of separation between myself and my ancestors, um, and my guardians, and that higher being, that higher power, uh, beings that we know to exist in this universe with us and that are guiding us. um, and so I just wanted to to mention that and to explore that with all of you here for a moment. Yeah. Belief is where it begins. Yeah. And to have at least the belief is a fantastic start. Yeah. And and then progressing to unknowing. Here's a quote in alignment. First, make your relationship to the higher beings right. Okay, this really speaks to us of Pono, which is a right alignment, and it's also another one of the pillars that we spoke of, um, and that we introduced last week. Um, and I wanted to bring that forward into this presentation once again, because we're talking about the importance and significance of the higher beings, of our gods and our goddesses in our lives and in the foundation that we're building. We are striving to make that relationship right, and to make that relationship strong, uh, and unshakable, really. Okay. Before we continue on, I want to say aloha to Susan Matthews. That's my mom saying aloha, joining you late. Thanks for being here. Um, and it's good to have you always. Before we move on here, I'd like to invite Kumu Kumu Pa'a Catherine Roberts into the broadcast, and to speak and to share a bit about. We're moving into uh, our almakuas now, and so I'd like to have you just come on and speak and share what you're inspired to share about our guardian spirits.
Aloha, Kumu Pa'a Kawika Foster, and aloha mai kako to everyone out there in Facebook land. I'm Kumu Pa'a Catherine Roberts, and I'm coming to you live from Byron Bay, which is a small coastal town on the north east coast of Australia. So great to be here. Almakua. Wow, Almakua, as shared with me by these kumu, is our guardians, as Kavika mentioned. And they are guardian spirits that can take the body forms of many different that many different forms of animal or elemental forms. So these guardians or protectors are actually members of our ancestral family that no longer are in this physical realm. So they are in the spirit realm, and they can choose to come into a body form, a kino lao, of a variety of different animals and plants and winds and cloud formations. So again, more of an elemental body form. So depending on the family, there's often quite a story that is attached to their particular aumakua, their particular guardian, that may be passed on through the ohana, through the family. And those stories share of moments when they were came forth into their body forms or their kino laos to assist or to warn or to somehow communicate with their family members who are in this physical realm. So again, they are one of the three main principal beings that we call out to, the higher being being the AKUA that Kawika spoke of, the O Kahiko, which are the ancient ancestors, and then the Na'amakua. So they are one of the three BCC'd in our email pulley, or in our prayers, that we call out to assist us. And yeah, I know Kavika's got some really great stories to share with you about his aumakua. And their moments when they have come to him, and I think as he often shares, it's not his aumakua is the owl, is the pueo, the Hawaiian owl. And it doesn't mean that it's all owls. It really is. It's not like in some of the other cultures where they have a totem, where it's like, my totem might be this particular animal or tree or plant, and they're referring to the way that the relationship that they have to all of those. This is really speaking quite specifically to a relationship to a particular ancestor that comes into takes the body form at a particular moment in time for a reason. And it's very quite evident that there's a very different atmosphere or energy or feel when the aumakua present themselves, as many of you have probably experienced when they've come in to share something with you. It definitely gets your attention, and it's different from just seeing any old owl or any old bird or any old animal. It has a particular presence, and it is definitely there to share something with you, to assist or to reach out, to warn or to acknowledge. So there's many different levels and layers that they may be communicating to you on, but there definitely is there will be a very deep connection to this particular guardian or the form that they come to you in. So that's just a very general moment there on Makua. And I'm going to leave it for Kavika to share some of his wonderful stories that he has, depending on how deep he wants to go in this session. So mahalo for bringing me forward. Kalamai for just doing a short share, but there's many things going on around me at the moment. But great to be here and love listening to it all. So mahalo.
That's all good, Kumu Pa'a. Catherine, I always enjoy having you, and thank you for your share on Omakua. Yeah, and you really touched on some really important, significant components of Omakua, and particularly how we acknowledge and address them in our culture, and the significance of it being a specific ancestor. So I want to thank you for that, and mahalo, and hopefully we'll have you on later on. So yes, everyone, I want to just say that, let's break down the word. I didn't have this planned for this live stream, but I'm just inspired to do it now here in the moment. And while I have the words na aumakua here on the screen with me for all of you to see. Once again, na is plural, and au, yeah, au, it speaks to us of a frame. Yeah, it speaks to us of a framework. It speaks to us of a specific, it's really talking to us about a generation. Yeah. It's talking to us about a particular generation of an understanding of of a space, of a period of of time. And and makua, right? Makua is your parent. Yeah, makua is the word in our language in which we address our parent, um, or our parents. Yeah, makua kane is our male parent, our fathers, right? Makua wahine is this is our mothers, right? So that's sort of, you begin to understand how these words begin to interplay with one another and the generations of our ohana, of our family, right? And you know, ao is really about understanding that these are our parent spirits, our parent guardians that belong to a specific generation, that belong to a specific level. um, and look, the other thing that I'm inspired to share now that I'm in the role of it, yeah, ao makua are, not only are there specific relationships, yeah, specific ancestor spirits, um, that Aumakua is a title, um, another form of addressing the certain level of ancestral spirit that we are that we're communicating about, right? So what it speaks to us about, what our Aumakua really speaks to us about, is these were um, these were ancestors that were in full alignment, right? These were ancestor spirits that were in full alignment. They had done the work. Yeah, later on, in one of the other principles that you've not principles but pillars that you've heard us share previously, Hana, yeah, the work. These Aumakua, these guardian spirits, these guardian parents, right, of that generation, of that place, they had really done the work, and there was direct and complete alignment, right? And you were you elevated. Yeah, they did what they needed to do and were elevated to this station of Almakua, right? This was something that you earned. This was something that um that you transitioned into, by living really good lives. Okay. Right? So just really directly speaking, yeah, living really good lives, doing really good things, and so when they enter into the spirit realm, they maintain those responsibilities, those kuleanas for the living descendants still here in the physical realm. So those are just some more intimate components that I wanted to speak about in regards to our Almakua that we don't normally get to share on, or to speak on. So I was just inspired to do that here and now, with you all. So that's our Almakua, and yes, we have. I have. Um, um, yes, I have a multitude, several stories about my Aumakua, which is happens to be my grandfather, my grandpa Bear, on my maternal side. Um, and it's a yeah, it's again, it's the pueo, it's the indigenous and native owl of the Hawaiian Islands, and once again, it's not all owls. Yeah. Um, for example, in my teacher's lineage, in his ohana, they have mano, which is a shark, Aumakua. And they also have in their family, in their lineage, the mo'o, which is a lizard, the guardian lizard. It's a dragon, really. Called a kiha, right? And this is a very specific. Once again, I'm just touching on the specificness of these almakua, these guardian spirits. That and that it's not all in. It doesn't include all sharks, right? So my kumu will share a story, many times in his youth, yeah, going out fishing with his brothers and with his friends, and the shark would present itself, to them while they were out fishing on the boat, and there's the friends would all they'd all try to coax Lawrence into swimming, getting into the water and joke around and play with him and say, what your family, your family on Makua is the Manoa, so why don't you get why don't you get in the water with the shark? And again, it just speaks of another way of speaking of this is a specific, it's not all sharks, right? That it's a specific shark, and it has a very specific name, yeah, and relationship to the family, to the ohana. Okay, so uh, this is the component of the aumakua. Okay, uh, let's drop back in here. And here's a nice quote about love unconditional. Um, this is directly from Kumu Pa'a Nui Lawrence Aki. This unconditional love will always lead you to the line of truth, which is the only true choice that we have. Okay, so those are some of his words in the not so distant past, and I just wanted to share them here to speak about the unconditional love, which is another pillar that we've shared, aloha, um, and once again, just wanting to draw draw some understandings of these other pillars into this into the first pillar that we're diving deeply into today, which is akua. Once again, yeah, na akua, and this speaks to us of the relationship that we have to them, yeah, and this loving unconditionally, um, our relationship to them, particularly since now we're dropping into Poe Kahiko. Now, Poe Kahiko, this is our ancient ancestors. Once again, Poe is people, yeah, um, and Kahiko is ancient. So this is really speaking to us about our ancient ancestors, everyone, and and in this very much the same way that I'd like to speak about our Aumakua, I'd also like to speak about our Poe Kahiko in a very similar fashion, and that is that Poe Kahiko, once again, these are um, these are family members that lived good lives, that did good things, and when they passed away, yeah, when they died, yeah, and they went on the journey, uh, they made the journey, right? So, Poe Kahiko, when we're talking about our ancestors, really, we are addressing the ancestors that did good things, led good lives, and when it came time for them to no longer be here in the physical world, in the physical realm, they made the journey and they made it to the realm of our ancestors, to join our ancestors, and they become our poe kahiko, our they join our ancient ancestors. So once again, this is speaking to us, um, of the significance of this word ancestor and what it means to become an ancestor spirit, and the kinds of things it also speaks to us of the kinds of things that we need to do in our living lives, yeah, to make it there, to be included with them upon our passing, yeah. So That's Poe Kahiko, our ancient ancestors. Yeah. And just a little bit of clarification in there. When we're talking about our ancestors, we're not talking about all dead spirits. Yeah. Um, we're talking or all dead people and their spirits, right? We are talking about our ancestors, and our ancestors are the ones, once again, that did what needed to be done and made it there. Yeah. So here's a quote. The ancestor, oh, there we go. So there's a quote of what I just got done speaking about. The ancestors we speak of are the ones that lived good lives and did good things. And when it came time for them to make the journey, they made the journey. Okay. Um, and this drops us into knowing. Yeah. And knowing your ancestors. Okay. The importance of knowing your ancestors and the importance of knowing it really comes from that connection that we speak of to them. It comes from freeing and clearing ourselves, doing the work that needs to be done, the hana, and disciplining um, our mind and free our minds and freeing and clearing anything in our minds or in our beings that would prevent us from knowing who they are and knowing their existence and their presence in our lives. Um, so yeah, this component right here, knowing your ancestors is really a significant and important part. And it leads me to this sharing, this really powerful and significant sharing of my teacher, my Kumu, um, in which he spoke these words, and which is knowing is having no need to know. Yeah, and what my Kumu is speaking about, what he's sharing there with us all, and what he shared with me specifically um, when he spoke those words to me for the first time, is that when we are coming to know our ancestors, we're relying on what we call our na'au. And the na'au is the deep, deep within. It's our home. It's the home of our intuition. It's our guts. It's our deep innards. Yeah. And that's the place and the space of our being that knows. Yeah. The mind, for example, the po'o, it thinks. Yeah. And our our na'au is the place that knows. So, and when we come from that place, we no longer need to know up here in the mind and in the intellect. Instead, we come to understand, we come to know from deep within. Yeah. So, and making that, once again, making that connection. And these connections that we speak of is what we call aka. Okay? Aka cords are invisible connections. They are visible, translucent, yeah, invisible, translucent lines of communication that we have here on Earth to everyone and everything that is present and in existence in our universe. And sometimes these aqua cords get plugged up, get blocked um, by what we call the pohakus and the stones. And the stones block these lines of connection. So once again, it speaks to us of the importance of freeing and clearing ourselves and our connections, our invisible connections of these pohakus, of these stones, which represent for us such things as fear and anger. Hatred is a very heavy stone. Um, so these connections that we have, yeah, to our ancestors, it's this is how knowledge and wisdom is transferred, yeah, transferred from one source to the other, every time, and it's inclusive of all of our senses. Yeah, so everything that we see, that we smell, that we taste, we touch, we feel, these are aka cords that we are creating, yeah, that connect us um, to what we're engaging with and what we find present in our immediate environment, and transfer knowledge and wisdom of how we can navigate, orient ourselves, and navigate uh, in in our circumstances and in our lives, really. not just our circumstances, but in our lives as a whole. So these Aka chords really speak to us about those connections that we have and the communication that we have to our ancestors. Yeah, our Poe Kahiko, our ancestors, our Aumakua, our guardian parents, yeah, our guardian spirits, and of course to Naakua, which is a modern way of addressing all of the higher beings, um, the gods and the goddesses. So, and here's some more understandings about these invisible connections. We create quadrillions of them, trillions of Aka chords throughout our lifetime. Yeah. Once again, it's everything that we see, we smell, we taste, we touch, we feel. Yeah. These are Aka chords um, that transfer knowledge and wisdom. Belonging. Okay, moving into this belonging, we're nearing up. We're getting to the end of this presentation, everyone. Um, Belonging and being a part of the whole. So once again, this part is significant in the sharing at this time of AKUA, um, uh, because of the connections that we have, right? And it's understanding that we individually comprise and we are part of a whole, that and that we are continually engaging with our ohana that are still physically living and present with us in this physical realm, uh, but is also inclusive of the wind and the trees and the sun and the moon, and it arcs all the way out. It crosses all the way into the spirit realm, with that of our ancestors, our guardians, and the higher beings. Yeah, really simple, really direct. And it's understanding our place in that. It's our understanding our belonging in that. That, um, and it also speaks to us of the significance of our birth, right? And being a part of a ohana of a family. So, in the significance of belonging, and to wrap this presentation up today, about Na'akua, I have one final quote from that of Kumu Pa'a Nui, Lord Saki, and it's one of my favorites. Okay, and I'll share it with you now. And that is, ancestors, if you do not know who they are, yeah, understand that they know who you are. Many, many times, yeah, many times we have people that come across our path, and they they love our lineage. Yeah, they love the the heritage. They love the passing down of the traditions and the cultures through a significant lineage. And um and many times they literally say, it's such a wonderful thing, it's such a great thing for you that we have this connection and that we have this long-standing lineage. But how about someone like me that doesn't have a connection like that, that doesn't have, maybe they don't know who their grandparents are, maybe they don't know who any of their family is actually. I was in conversation a couple weeks ago about, the significance of how to work with individuals that are orphaned, yeah, that have no physical connection to their ohana, to their family, and what kind of significance does that hold? um, the concepts and the teachings that we share, how does that apply to those kinds of experiences in life? And that's the answer. Yeah, that quote, those words from my Kumu, Lawrence, is addressing that very topic. Yeah, that very question of, what does it mean for me, yeah, when I don't have any connection to my ohana, to my family? Um, and or I don't know who my ancestors are. Yeah. More importantly, that very directly, um, that question has come up. Um, that very deep question for many people of I don't know who my ancestors are, um, and so once again, there's that sharing. Yeah, ancestors. If you don't know who they are, yeah, understand that they know your ancestors know who you are. And many a times, this is the work that we speak of. Yeah, the work that we speak of on a spiritual, mental, and physical basis is making that connection, making it free, making it clear, making it strong. Yeah, and calling out to this important, um, the existence, yeah, this important knowing of the existence of our ancestors, our guardians, and that of the higher beings, our gods and our goddesses. So I'd like to say mahalo nui. Thank you once again. Thank you very much for watching and for being here. This is the second live stream, the O Kahiko live stream of the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundation sharing, and we kicked uh, this live stream off with doing a deep dive into the very first and most important pillar of the foundation that we are building, which is that of AKUA, our gods, our goddesses, the higher beings, and the inclusion and the inclusiveness of our guardians, our aumakuas, and our poe kahiko, our ancestors. Oh, I want to say mahalo, Ricardo, for being here, for leaving a comment. Mahalo very much. Aloha to you as well. And of course, Micah, mahalo for this lovely, supportive comment. Great talk. I'm glad that you are enjoying it. I'm glad that you um, uh, uh, are here, yeah, and are present. Thank you for joining me. So, everyone, we are wrapping this up. I'm wrapping this up now. We've been on for an hour and a half already, hour 24 minutes to be exact, and we're done. Um, I'd like to thank everyone that joined me and for all the comments um, that you all made and the contributions to this presentation. And I'd like to say. Um, this happens every week on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we are going into deeper into the foundation, and we're tackling the second component, the second pillar of the foundation that we speak of, and we're going to be going into puli, prayer, and the power and the significance of prayer. So make sure to join me for that next week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I'd also like to mention that this Thursday at 3 p.m., we're continuing the deep dive into Ho'oponopono in the live broadcast. So if you're interested in being present for that one, make sure to mark it in your calendars. That's this Thursday at 3 p.m. And we're continuing the Ho'oponopono, the power of forgiving discussion. So make sure that you're here for that if you're inspired to do so. Want to mahalo Kumu Pa'a Nui, Lawrence Kalainia Kamani Aki for being here and for your contribution to this share and speaking about AKUA in its many forms and speaking about the importance and significance of language and everything else that you presented for us. I'd also like to thank Kumu Pa'a Catherine Roberts for also joining me live and for your contributions on Almakua and and all of the intricacies that you presented in your share. And this is wrap. It's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next share. Hopefully Thursday for Ho'oponopono, or next week Tuesday, same time, for the continuation of the foundation of Hawaiian spirituality and talking about prayer. Mahalo to you all. A hui ho, as we say, until we meet again. And malama pono. Take care of your pono. Ending. 3, 2, 1. A hui ho.